It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call this May 9th Planning Commission meeting to order. First, roll call.
Sarah Jones,
Marty Markey.
Scott Jensen,
Harlow Vernwald,
Bill Blank.
Rita Bernhard.
Right. Next is approval of the March 14th meeting minutes. Have any comments?
Did not see anything, but that was the only thing I was looking at was what I wrote or whatever, I mentioned. So
Right. Seeing no comments, would somebody like to make a motion?
Make the motion to approve as presented.
I have a second.
yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Next is citizen input. Have any citizens wishing to give input not dealing with anything on the docket today? Right. Seeing none, we'll move to new business. We'll start with docket SDR 1-24 and SLDP 2-24. City of Scappoose has requested approval of a consolidated application for site development review and sensitive development permit SDR 124 and SLDP 224 allow for the demolition of two existing water reservoirs, constructing a new 3 million gallon water reservoir, and improvements to various site amenities. Site location is 52212 Southwest Keys Road, southeast of the Southwest Keys Landing Road and Southwest Keys Road intersection, on property described as Columbia County Assessor Map 3211-BD-00200. This is a consolidated limited land use decision and quasi-judicial hearing. Limited land use decisions, which is for the site development review in this case, do not allow verbal testimony during the hearing. However, written comments are permitted prior to Wednesday, May 8th at 5 p.m. Quasi-judicial decisions, which is the sensitive lands development permit, allow verbal testimony during the hearing as well as written comments prior to Wednesday, May 8th. All right. Now I get to read our instructions. Consolidated quasi-judicial limited land use hearing statement for Planning Commission to be read by the Planning Commission Chair. I am calling this consolidated limited land use and quasi-judicial public hearing to order to consider an application for site development review SDR 1-24 and sensitive lands slope hazard development permit SLDP 2-24. Testimony and evidence must address the criteria that apply to the decision as described in the staff report or to the criteria the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Persons may speak only after being recognized by the chair and must come forward to the microphone and state their name and city for the record. Only testimony that is relevant to the application will be considered. The failure to raise and to clarify an issue to afford all parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeals on the issue. In regard to the sensitive lands development permit, Planning Commission will conduct a hearing in a quasi-judicial capacity. In other words, like a court trial where the Planning Commission serves as finders of fact, verbal testimony is allowed for a quasi-judicial decision. This is a consolidated hearing, and the site development review application shall be processed as a limited land use decision. It does not take verbal testimony because it does not require interpretation or the exercise of policy or legal judgment. Therefore, any verbal testimony shall be limited to issues related to the sensitive lands development permit approval. Does any planning commissioner wish to declare any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest regarding this matter? I'll just say I live a block away. I don't think that will make any impact on my decisions in this case. Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner's impartiality or legal capacity to participate in this matter? Seeing none, the order of the hearing will be the staff report, then the applicant's presentation, then proponents, then opponents, then rebuttal by the applicant, then a staff response. Thereafter, the hearing will be closed for consideration of the matter by the commission. The decision of the Planning Commission can be appealed to City Council. All right, your turn.
Well, good evening, commissioners. Thank you all for being here when it's 80 degrees outside. We'll go through the regular format tonight. I'll begin by reading the subject site information on page 8 of your Planning Commission packets. I'll then list the relevant approval criteria for the development and let you know the pages that correspond to those findings in the staff report. And then lastly, I'll let you know staff's recommendation and our recommended conditions of approval. After that, we'll pause in case there's any questions for staff before getting into the applicant's presentation. The folks at RH2 Engineering have prepared a nice PowerPoint for this application. So we will get into the staff report, starting with subject site. Subject site consists of an approximately 4.7 acre parcel of land that is currently occupied by 3 water reservoirs, a water treatment plant operations building, and a backwash basin. The site operates as a municipal water treatment plant and is known as the Keys Road Water Treatment Plant. North of the subject site is a row of single-family homes. East of the subject site is a vacant lot and a single-family home. South of the subject site is Southwest Keys Road, and to the south of that is a row of single-family homes. West of the subject site is Keys Road, and to the west of that is a row of single-family homes. The Huser Lane and Keys Road intersection, and the Crystal Springs Court and Southwest Keys Road intersection. Subject site is zoned public lands utility and is designated as public lands on the comprehensive plan map. All surrounding properties are zoned low density residential or R1 and are designated as suburban residential on the comprehensive plan map. Subject site is not located within the special flood hazard area or the 100-year floodplain, and there are no wetlands or water courses on or near the site. Subject site does contain steep slopes greater than 20%, which we'll get into a little bit more later. For requested approval, the request is to allow for the demolition of 2 existing water reservoirs, construction of a new 3 million gallon water reservoir, and improvements to various site amenities. This requires site development review where the Planning Commission is the approval authority. Subject site, as I mentioned, does contain slopes greater than 20%, and so a sensitive lands slope hazard development permit will be required, as well as conformance to Scappoose Development Code Chapter 17.86, Sensitive Lands Steep Slope Hazard. Section 17.78.050 of the Development Code states that due to the unique nature of public uses allowed within the PLU zone, no designated minimum lot size, minimum yard requirements, minimum building height, or maximum lot coverage exists. Minimum lot coverage, lot coverage, and building height and yard requirements shall be determined on a case-by-case basis by the Planning Commission as provided within the provisions of Chapter 17.120. So in this case, we looked at it, and the subject site is 4.7 acres in area, which is sufficiently large enough for what they're proposing with the new reservoir. The subject site has an approximately calculated lot coverage of 25 to 30%, including buildings and impervious surfaces, which is really reasonable for the zone and use. The new water reservoir is proposed to be 24 feet in height, whereas the existing 2 million gallon reservoir that is proposed to be demolished is 20 feet in height, so there's a really minimal difference there. The smallest setback on the site is 22.8 feet for an existing water reservoir and 36.9 feet for the new reservoir. Staff recommends approving the proposed dimensional conditions since they are really reasonable, do not cause conflicts with the development code, are similar to the existing dimensional conditions of the Keys Road water treatment plant, and the applicant is proposing to provide buffering and screening to the standards of Chapter 17.100. Consolidated land use applications. The applicant is requesting approval of 2 land use applications, site development review, and sensitive land slope hazard development permit. On its own, sensitive lands requires staff approval. However, since the applicant is requesting a consolidated decision and site development requires planning commission approval, planning commission will be the approval for both applications. Approving site development is a limited land use decision subject to chapter 17.164, and approving sensitive lands is a quasi judicial decision subject to chapter 17.162. Pursuant to section 17.10.050B, which essentially states that whenever 2 standards exist in the development code that are contradictory, the higher standard is the one that governs. So in pursuance with that, public noticing for the consolidated application was provided in accordance with the quasi judicial chapter because it requires that more members of the public are noticed. And public comments related to site development review will be processed in accordance with chapter 17.164, and comments related to sensitive lands will be processed in accordance with 17.162. Both applications would need to be approved for the applicant to be permitted to construct the proposed water reservoir. Right-of-way and public improvements. The property has frontage on Southwest Keys Road, which is classified by our transportation system plan as a neighborhood route. This requires 60 feet of right-of-way width, 36 feet of travel way, 2 5.5-foot planter strips, 2 6-foot sidewalks, and 2 6-inch utility areas. Keys Road currently has a right-of-way width between 48 and 54 feet, depending on which section of the really large frontage of this reservoir site you're looking at, and a paved width of between 20 and 32 feet. Additionally, the subject site has a 5-foot sidewalk along the entire frontage, except for a portion of the southwestern property line curve where the sidewalk turns slightly inward away from the curb line and continues the pedestrian pathway except for inside the parcel. In lieu of performing street improvements and providing a dedication meeting the full standards of a neighborhood route, the development code allows developers to submit and record a non-remonstrance agreement if certain provisions are met. Since the city of Scappoose is the named applicant and property owner and the city can't enter into a non-remonstrance agreement with itself, that agreement wouldn't be required. The non-remonstrance criteria in section 17.154.030A3 will be used to evaluate whether or not the applicant may be waived from performing street improvements and providing a dedication that meets the full standards of a neighborhood route. This development proposal applies to the criteria necessary to be waived from street improvements and a dedication meeting the full right-of-way width standards for a neighborhood route, and that those findings are contained in the staff report. Right-of-way dedication will be required in the southeastern corner of the subject site to the extent that that sidewalk is entirely within the right-of-way. The applicant is proposing to provide this requested dedication to remove the sidewalk from the property and instead have it entirely within the right-of-way. For vehicular access and off-street parking, the subject site has and is proposed to retain 2 driveways, one in the northwest corner of the site and the other in the southeast corner of the site. Majority of the subject site is fenced and not to be accessed by the public. The applicant is not proposing changes to the fence or access privileges, and as such, the proposal does not trigger the regulations of chapter 17.106, which is our parking chapter. Traffic generation. Requests for site development review typically require a transportation impact study or a TIS to be submitted as part of the land use application. However, given that trips to this site are nearly exclusively city employees and city contractors, and the number of daily and peak hour trips won't be impacted significantly as a result of this development, no TIS is going to be required for this application. Due to the low volume of estimated trips, no new transportation facilities or mitigation measures will be required. Under utilities, there is currently an 8-inch concrete sewer main in the Keys Road along the entire frontage with a connected 8-inch sewer main that runs from the south of the subject site to the approximate center of the site, providing connection to the water treatment plant operations building and the backwash station. The applicant is proposing to replace and relocate a section of the on-site main so that it is not directly under the new larger reservoir. There is currently a stormwater main of various diameters between 10 and 15 inches in Keys Road along the entire frontage, with a connected 12-inch stormwater main that runs from the south of the subject site towards the existing 2 million gallon water reservoir on the north end of the site that will remain. The applicant is proposing to replace a stormwater pipe primarily to the east of the new water reservoir, add a catch basin to the south of the new reservoir, and add an area drain to the north of the water treatment plant operations building and backwash station. The proposed stormwater improvements will mitigate stormwater runoff for all of the proposed net new impervious area by adding in a detention system capable of matching the pre-development runoff from the site. Therefore, the downstream system will not see any increase in runoff as a result of the proposed work. There is currently an 8-inch oxide dispersion strengthened alloys water main in Southwest Keys Road along the entire frontage and several water mains of various sizes and materials within the subject site. The applicant is proposing to replace and relocate a section of the on-site main further to the east so that it is appropriately distanced from the larger new water reservoir. Landscaping, screening, and street trees. The applicant submitted a landscaping plan, which is on file as Exhibit 4P, which depicts the provision of trees and grass throughout the subject site. The existing and proposed utility use is directly abutting residential uses to the north and to the east. Buffering and screening will be required where the subject site directly abuts these residential uses, and the applicant is proposing a 10-foot buffer as required where the utility use directly abuts residential use. The utility use would also be abutting residential uses to the west and south if not for the Keys Road right-of-way. When this is the case, buffering but not screening is required, and the applicant is proposing buffering as required by our standards along the western and southern edges of the property. Applicant is also proposing 7 golden desert ash street trees along the western frontage of the subject site and use existing deciduous, coniferous, and arborvitae trees to satisfy the requirements of Chapter 17.104, our street tree chapter. The applicant proposes to plant 16 total new trees on the site. Sensitive lands development permit. The subject site contains slopes steeper than 20%, and so a sensitive lands slope hazard development permit is required, as well as conformance to Chapter 17.86. The applicant is proposing to reduce some of the steep slopes on the site, and that can be observed in their grading plan. The geotechnical engineering report that the applicant submitted and had completed by RH2 states that the proposed reservoir will not degrade the slope stability of the site, provided the foundations recommended in the report are followed. Recommended conditions of approval in the staff report require the applicant to follow these recommendations of the geotechnical engineering report. The new water reservoir is proposed to be supported by either deep foundation or ground improvement foundation, which both support structural stability. Public and private agencies. The City of Scappoose interim city manager, interim public safety director, public works director, Columbia County Public Works Director, Columbia County Building Official, Scappoose Rural Fire Protection District, and Columbia River PUD have been provided an opportunity to review and comment on the proposal. The City of Scappoose Public Works Director provided a referral comment stating that they have reviewed the application and have no objection to its approval as submitted. The Columbia County Building Official provided a referral comment stating that the contractor will be required to obtain all applicable building, plumbing, and electrical permits. Scappoose Rural Fire Protection District provided a referral comment with requirements related to addressing fire apparatus roads, hydrants, and emergency access, and these are all reflected in the conditions of approval. The Columbia River PUD provided a comment that they have reviewed the application and have no objection to its approval as submitted. And the Columbia County Public Works Department provided a referral comment issuing the following requirements. The applicant shall obtain an access permit for each connection to Keys Road. The applicant must obtain a construction permit for any work that occurs within the right-of-way. No additional storm may be added to Keys Road. The applicant will develop an intergovernmental agreement with the county to address any needed road rehabilitation attributable to the construction. The applicant must meet all City of Scappoose standards, and the portion of the newly dedicated right-of-way should be dedicated to the county since they own Southwest Keys Road. The applicant will be required by the recommended conditions of approval to obtain an access permit for each of the 2 driveway connections to Keys Road, obtain a construction permit for any work that occurs within the right-of-way, adhere to the weight limit for construction vehicles on Keys Road, meet the provisions of the Scappoose Municipal Code and Public Works Design Standards, and provide the right-of-way dedication to Columbia County. Regarding the third requirement for no additional storm may be added to Keys Road, the proposed storm improvements will mitigate storm runoff and for all proposed net new impervious areas by adding in a detention system capable of matching the pre-development runoff from the site. Therefore, there will be no increase in runoff from the proposed work. Regarding requirement 4, which is that the applicant will develop an intergovernmental agreement with the county, Columbia County will document the condition of Keys Road with images and video before construction begins, and then the city and county will discuss road restoration following construction. Notice of the application and hearing was mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the subject site on April 19th and published in the April 26th edition of the Columbia County Spotlight. As of yesterday, deadline to submit written comment, there have been no comments made by the public. So moving now to the findings of fact related to each chapter. Chapter 12.10, visual clearance areas, can be found on pages 13 through 15. Chapter 17.01, introduction, right-of-way dedications and improvements, on pages 15 and 16. 17.78, public lands utility, pages 16 and 17. 17.86, sensitive lands slope hazard, pages 17 through 22. Chapter 17.100, landscaping, screening, and fencing, pages 22 through 26. Chapter 17.104, street trees, pages 26 through 29. Chapter 17.120, site development review, pages 29 through 35. I wrote that as 25. Chapter 17.140, public lands tree removal, pages 36 through 37. Chapter 17.154, street and utility improvement standards, 37 through 44. Chapter 17.162, procedures for quasi-judicial decision-making, pages 44 through 47. And finally, procedures for limited land use decision-making, pages 47 and 48. Based on the findings of facts and the materials submitted by the applicant, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve Site Development Review 1-24 and Sensitive Lands Development Permit 2-24, subject to the conditions of approval listed on pages 48 through 50. For this application, staff is recommending 24 conditions of approval with a mix of standard conditions that we require for all site development review and sensitive land slope applications, and then a few that are related to this site and development specifically. That now concludes staff's presentation of the observation, findings, and recommendation. At this time, I can take any questions from the commissioners before we get to the applicant's presentation.
Somebody's got it, go.
Quick question.
the budget for this project, is that already set? When would this project begin?
That's a question that the applicant would know better than I. I believe construction though is scheduled for this summer.
Okay.
And then it would be about 18 months.
Just another question. Is the inspection of Keys Road going to be limited to just the frontage of this property, or are they going to inspect the entire?
It'll kind of be the whole thing. So from the county's perspective, when you got construction vehicles coming, and Keys Road is already a failing road. And so they just want to get pre-construction documentation of what the condition of the whole thing is.
I'll add to that by saying that I think the idea is to limit construction traffic to between the north driveway and EM Watts. And so primarily the concern would be in that area. We don't anticipate truck traffic going north and getting onto JP West. There's no signalized intersection to get to easily from there. So
That mean, I didn't notice anything that would be a truck turnaround in the plans. Does that mean there's going to be a lot of trucks backing out onto Keys Road?
no, there wouldn't be trucks backing out.
Condition 20 talks about the contractor will submit to the city a performance bond of 110% value of all public improvements. What specifically is that for? And mainly I'm wondering, should it be a performance bond or a payment and performance bond? I unfortunately haven't had experience in the difference.
I mean, it would be I don't know how the bid is going to describe that, but traditionally it would be a performance bond. So a traditional performance bond.
You should update that to payment and performance bond. Because we can talk about it offline, but I have actually dealt with the difference between the two, and they are two different things.
We'll follow, our code and what BOLI contract law would require. So when we get to that, we'll take a look at it.
Any other questions?
Just for the commissioners and for the record, what happens if the applicant's permit, one of them is rejected? We know you have to have two to approve. Can there be a decision we make appeal to city or that?
Yeah, it would be like what portion of it they're appealing, but you're right, you do need both for them to be able to do this project. So appealing one would hold up the whole project.
Right.
Okay, I think it's time for our applicant's presentation.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Edwin Hollim, and this is Taylor Stockton.
Can I get you guys to both just speak really directly into the microphone so it's for record clear?
Okay. All right. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Edwin Hollim and Taylor Stockton from RH2 Engineering. We are the consultants that design the Keys Road 3 million gallon reservoir, and we would like to present the project to you. So to start with is a project background. Reservoirs are a critical part of the water infrastructure. They provide water for drinking water for average and maximum demands, and also during fire and emergencies. With that said, reservoirs, we would like to make sure that they're resilient to earthquake and other disasters. Also, the reservoir is needed when population grows. So for this project, there's an additional need of 2 million gallon, and there's an existing 1 million gallon constructed in 1967, and is obviously out of the seismic code at the moment. So the project plan is to avoid the expensive retrofits and replace the 1 million gallon at the 2 million gallon that the city will need for the future with the 3 million gallon reservoir. So as you know, this is the vicinity map for the project. There are 3 reservoirs on site. The one at the north is a 2 million gallon, and then the southern 2 reservoirs, that's the 1 million gallon and the 0.2 million gallon. This is another zoom out vicinity map that encompassed Highway 30 and the site. So like what discussed previously, but the access to the site for construction is through M. Watts Road and Keys Road.
And I'm Taylor Stockton from RH2 Engineering. I'll continue to take you through really kind of an overview of some of the steps you would see in the construction of this site. If you look at this slide, what we're showing here is, again, that's the same view of the existing site. Notice that it's rotated 90 degrees north, being to the right. So you've got those 3 existing reservoirs again on the site. In this next slide, we're kind of showing you the first phase of work after kind of securing some basic things on the site, like erosion control and some temporary fencing between the construction area and the rest of the site. The demolition is going to occur of those existing reservoirs there on the south end of the site. Also, some replacement of utilities like the water pipe that NJ mentioned right along the east side, so to kind of get it out of the way, also to kind of upgrade it to a larger and more resilient pipe. In the next slide, you see kind of as with those existing things out of the way, the contractor would be able to do the construction grading. These reservoirs are like the ones on the site, are partially buried, and so there's excavation going down and providing that foundation, also making opportunity to do the ground improvement or other foundation preparation for the reservoir. The orange block there on the side is just representing an area that we're anticipating the contractor would use to store materials and equipment on the site. This is a good slide to point out that the work related to the reservoirs, all the work, pretty much all the work except the landscaping, is contained within the fenced limits of the site. So you may be familiar with the trees that are kind of up there on the top of the slide, the existing trees, and the fence line that runs through the middle of them. Just to kind of note that all the work is on this side on the inside of the fence. In the next slide, you see the location of that new 3 million gallon reservoir with the access road going around it. And the replaced water pipe along the east. There's some additional new piping you see connecting between the reservoir and up over to the water plant. Some of the older piping on the site and providing additional resilience and operation control for the site. There's also on there, you can see the stormwater piping in green. There along the east or bottom side of the new reservoir, that's what's providing the detention to reduce that runoff from the site so that there's not something exceeding the existing stormwater runoff from the site. The final slide we have landscaping. There's a fair amount of disturbed area on the site that will be restored mostly to grass, similar to what you see now on the site is maintained. And then along the top of the slide, you see those seven street trees, providing that requirement. And then on the right side, there along the north fence, you see some additional trees planted, providing buffering. There were not existing trees there. The other sides of the site, there are existing trees. This is just a rendering. If you were to stand in Keys Road, kind of looking up the hill to the west or northwest, if there were not existing trees in the way, this is what the reservoir would potentially look like. You can see the existing pump station in yellow, the existing fencing there, along which the existing arborvitae trees run. So there was a question earlier about funding for the site. So the city has secured several sources of funding. You have the American Rescue Plan Act, which is provides the principal amount of the funding. Special Public Works Fund, administered through Business Oregon, urban renewal, as well as really capital improvements budget that the city has been allocating for this. There was some discussion about schedule earlier. Here's kind of an overview, really from halves of years, right? So each bullet representing a half. So you see the second half, as was mentioned earlier, that construction would start this summer, that utility relocation, demolition, and excavation. The foundation improvements would happen during the winter, and reservoir construction would largely occur during the first half of next year. And then really as the reservoirs would be tested, brought into operation, and other site work, other mechanical work is getting finished up during the second half of next year. Landscaping may also happen during that time, but it may extend into the next year. Site is cleaned up and back to full use. So as if you think about it from a construction standpoint, just this bullet was here to kind of discuss that main access from the south and the limitations, right, that the construction is being contained to the fenced areas of the site. That's that. We just kind of had this slide here again. If anyone had questions about construction, that's the.
I mean, the
bulk of our
obvious thing
presentation.
is be seismic designed, etc.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the seismic design. So the reservoir is built to current AWA and building code standards, which do take into account the site class for this site, and the foundation improvements are intended to provide kind of global stability for the new reservoir, global stability when other things are shaking, if you will.
I would add this concrete reservoir is truly designed for seismic resiliency because the way the structures move. So the floor and wall can move separately, even though they're made out of concrete. So it is built for structural resilience.
In the Shannon and Wilson document that was part of this packet that we had, there were two options for piers. There's the GeoPier and the Auger Casset. So has there been a determination of which system is going to be used?
We're leaning towards the GeoPiers at the moment.
Anybody have any other questions?
I'm sorry, I'm just curious. How are you disposing of the current reservoir?
We have, there's, kind of two main disposals happening, right? There's a fair amount of bulk dirt that's being excavated. That some of that is being reused on site. You're probably also referring to the existing concrete structure. Yeah.
So that will be get either cut or demolished, then being trucked out by the contractor to roof disposal site.
That'd be the Scappoose sand and gravel location that we have.
More than likely, yes.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Right. Is there anybody here that wants to speak for this project? All right, seeing none. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to this project? Again, none. And I'm gonna guess that there's no rebuttal from the applicant. Okay. And no staff response. All right, so we're gonna close the hearing for consideration by the commission.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it fits in with this or not. And I think staff might be able to answer. In the news the last few days, I've been hearing about this fluoride situation. Apparently, there seems to be some discussion about different cities in the country and stuff that are not going to be doing fluoride anymore. Are you guys addressing that issue or thinking about it? Or I'm just kind of curious if it's that's going to impact anything that we're doing.
Yeah, that would be the first I've heard of that.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, yeah. I'm Dave Suka, the Public Works Director. There's been no discussion to this date. That's the first I've heard of that.
This is Channel 2, I think. I heard it on the last couple of days. They've been talking about it.
Okay. Obviously, it's a very controversial topic,
Yeah.
but the city of Scappoose voters voted that in
Okay.
many years ago. And to date, there's been no change, no appetite to change that. So yeah, we're status quo as of right now, unless something comes
Unless something happens. Okay.
forward that changes that, in which case we would go back to the voters to make a determination there.
Okay. Thank you. That's the only thing I was asking.
Well, having been around for a while, I've seen this thing up front, and I recommend that when you first become a new commissioner, might tour some of these sites, because sooner or later something's going to happen down the road and they're going to change. So it gives you a better idea, perspective. And I know that we're at a point where we have to do something. We have to move forward. And as far as I can tell, right now, there's nothing there that hasn't been satisfied or affected by this decision that we might make, but that we do have to make a decision on both of these, and we must approve those. And so when we get to the vote itself, then I guess I'll vote.
I'll clarify, we do not have to approve them. We are deliberating whether or not to approve.
Well, that's technically true, I imagine.
Yes. Just want to make sure it's there for everybody.
Well, I'm just saying it's a part of a process that has to be done.
And this, it seems very straightforward. Seems like a good job of being within the site. And as possible. So I think this has been very well done and very good job by the city. Preparing all of the staff report for it.
Seems like everything has been addressed.
Yeah.
Any of the concerns has been addressed already.
I think it's interesting too that none of the local residents have sent a bunch of letters out and freaked out or whatever.
people are just interested. They want their water, and as long as the city is supplying it, I think most folks are
Yeah,
content, unless there is some sort of controversy like we might be facing with this fluoride situation. But generally speaking, I think, most folks are, they believe that the city is doing the right thing, by keeping up with what, the demand and so on.
So if Keys Road is the property of the county, do they have to grant some kind of approval along with this because the easement's part of this whole thing? Or have they just,
So the county's requiring that each of the two driveways have an access permit, which is just their way to like document all the like driveways and access points and get it in their system. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
yes,
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, like to call the vote. No, I need a motion, sorry.
all right. I'll move to approve docket number SDR 1-24, SDLP 2-24, where in the city of Scappoose has requested approval of a consolidated application for site development review and sensitive lands development permit. SDR 1-24, SLDP 2-24 to allow for the demolition of two existing water reservoirs, construction of a new 3 million gallon water reservoir, and improvements to various site amenities. Sites located at 52212 Southwest Keys Road, southeast of the Southwest Keys Landing Road and Southwest Keys Road intersection, on property described as Columbia County Assessor Map number 3211-DD-00200. Anything else?
Be with the
Oh, okay.
As presented.
Yeah, with the conditions as presented.
I'll second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve as presented dockets SDR 1-24 and SLDP 2-24. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes. Thank you for coming out and presenting. Okay. You don't have to stay for the rest of our nail biting meeting.
Not much left.
yeah. Team agreement.
All right,
Calendar.
next is the team agreement. And we'll go ahead and read through this. This is the Planning Commission 2024 team agreement. Agreements for conducting Planning Commission meetings and business. 1, attendance at Planning Commission meetings is a priority. If unable to attend, please contact the Community Development Office administrator. Be on time to meetings and read the packet prior to the meeting. Be prepared to work. Chair will take the lead in keeping the meeting and discussion focused. Distribute information in advance of Planning Commission discussion. Chair will recognize commissioners when indicating they wish to speak. Note on distributing information, distribute it through staff, not directly amongst us. Chair will recognize commissioners when indicating they wish to speak. That's one of those formalities that only shows up at to be.
Seems like you would just.
Rule is here, as if it needs to be applied, that's the rule here. Have not had that issue. Number 6, put a time limit on audience testimony if needed and ask them not to repeat previous speakers' concerns. D, no repetitive testimony. 7, use formal procedure, point of order, call for question, etc. Focus the meeting. Formal procedure may be used when necessary for effective discussion. In lieu of Planning Commission's usual, more informal process, individuals should use procedure appropriately and courteously. For 8, Planning Commission meetings are televised live. This requires the Planning Commission to act professionally by speaking in turn and on the issue, not interrupting, not engaging in side conversations, and treating the public and each other with courtesy. 9, refrain from personal attacks, including to presenters, staff, and Planning Commission. 10, agree to be diplomatic about disagreement and do not try to polarize other commissioners. 11, call the city planner or designee with questions and requests prior to the meeting. 12, information made available to one planning commissioner will be available to all in a timely manner. 13, every effort will be made to adjourn meetings by 9 p.m. Individual planning commission member conduct agreements. Planning commission members agree to be straightforward about goals and issues, cultivate exchange of views with other commissioners, avoid saying or doing anything that would discredit or harm the city, and trainings that are offered by the city for the success and betterment of the commission, respect the decision of the majority of the planning commission members after a decision has been made. Commitments as a planning commission. Planning Commission strives to continue to improve citizen involvement, awareness, and participation, improve follow-up and resolution of citizen concerns or complaints, and act as an advocate for the city. I will say on the respect decision, you don't have to say anything if you don't support something, but don't speak against. Make that clear. And I'll have slots here to sign this agreement, unless anybody has any comments or concerns they wish to raise.
I'll give you a comment. And that one would be on number 13, every effort adjourning meetings by 9. In the past, that's never been too much of a problem, but there have been times in the past where we've had that problem. And the one thing was that, I don't know if we need to indicate that at some time, but if a meeting needs to be, it can be continued.
I guess that's for all the planning commissioners' awareness that
Yeah.
if we get to where we're not going to finish up a topic or an item that evening, we can continue the hearing to a future meeting.
Or I think we can, at that particular meeting, at that particular time, agree to continue on for, another
You
half
can-
hour,
right,
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, we can address it right,
Yeah.
there. So
Right.
it doesn't necessarily
or
have
kind
to
of a
be
thing.
postponed to another day.
Usually the way that it's happened is we all know something's coming up that's going to be a big deal. And so the staff
There's a lot of
usually arranges it.
comments or
So
something.
that's the only item on the menu for that night. And we'll go past that 9 o'clock time, but we'll have more warning at that. Sometimes it's better to finish it up if we can in one sitting rather than.
Okay.
Any other comments?
What would the recommendation be to continue to improve citizen? Yeah. What would the recommendation be to continue to improve citizen involvement, awareness, and participation?
Let's ask that we have Lori address that at our next meeting.
Lori's online if you want to ask her.
Oh,
Hello, everyone. Can you point to which number that was, please? Oh, I think I see it. Continue to improve citizen involvement, awareness, and participation. Was that the one that you read? Can you all hear me? I can hear you.
Lori?
Yeah, I could hear you fine. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Was that the continue to improve citizen involvement, awareness, and participation? Was that the one?
Yes.
I think that in a general sense would just be to talk to your fellow citizens in the community, provide awareness that they can come and attend planning commission hearings. If they have issues or things that you're hearing around town, you can always bring those back as topics of conversation amongst the planning commission or even staff, and we could potentially, look into any issues that you're hearing about in the community. And so that's just really just a general statement to let the planning commissioners be aware of the fact that you are representing the city and you do have a role in educating others to, I guess, to have them be involved in city government as well and to attend not just planning commission meetings, but city council meetings as well and to be involved in their community.
All right.
Just to add, make sure we let people know that we've talked to people like that at our meetings, that's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Chair, if I may, the only one I'd want to underscore is number one at the top of the sheet. It's just really helpful for us, as you all do, to let us know if you can or can't make it, because we just want to know that there's a quorum and be confident in that going in. So it's really helpful that you all do that.
So noted. Thank you. Anything else? All right, we'll take care of signing this as soon as the meeting ends. Couple of housekeeping things to do here. First up is calendar check. All right. Let's see. Farmers Market is open as of last Saturday.
Yep.
And we'll be going 9 to 2 on the 11th and every Saturday until September, through September.
Expect a lot more people here Saturday.
Monday, the 13th, Budget Committee meeting at 5. Tuesday, the 14th, Budget Committee meeting at 5. Thursday, the 16th, Parks and Rec meeting at 6. Saturday, Farmers Market. Monday, the 20th, City Council work session at 6, followed by meeting at 7. 21st, Budget Committee at 5. The 23rd, Economic Development Committee meets at noon. Saturday, the 25th, Farmers Market. Monday, the 27th, city offices will be closed for Memorial Day.
I just want to note on that May 20th meeting, Liz sent out an invite, but that'll be another land use training that we had, I believe, about a year ago in March. And you all are invited to that too.
And then you send around just a note about what that covers to everybody.
Yeah, so that we'll have our city attorney's office and they're land use experts. So it's speaking on procedure, the different types of decision-making criteria and how decision-making authorities have to get in their heads and think about land use decisions.
And June, start with Saturday the 1st in the Farmers Market. Monday, the 3rd of June, City Council work session at 6 and meeting at 7. Farmers Market on Saturday, the 8th. Planning Commission meeting on Thursday, the 13th at 7.
Do they know what the topic might be? Curious because whether I'll be here or not, it depends.
It's so at this point, just because of noticing and particularly referrals to different agencies, it's unlikely that we'd have that meeting, but the June 27th meeting, I would say, is pretty likely.
Thank you. Farmers Market on Saturday, the 15th. Monday, the 17th, City Council work session at 6, meeting at 7. Wednesday, the 19th, city offices closed in observance of Juneteenth. Saturday, the 22nd, farmer's market. And then, as NJ was just saying, June 27th, planning commission meeting at 7. The 9th of June, farmer's market. Any commissioner comments? I already said mine. You did a great job.
Thank all the fellow commissioners for showing up, and it's a good experience, and glad we accomplished something.
Yes. All right. Anyone else? Staff comments?
So I'll just give you a couple updates on what's going on in the planning department. So we have 2 scheduled inquiry meetings right now. The first one that we'll hold on May 29th is Grace Lutheran Church. Their board is interested in expanding their childcare services. And so they're having a meeting with us to add a building for more additional childcare services in their parking lot.
Where is that?
Grace Lutheran Church, it's where the northern end of Old Portland Road is. It's kind of near the food carts and dealers market.
Oh, okay.
It's the one that had a bunch of property set aside for housing or something one time.
Oh, really?
There.
It's by the.
Does it front on
By the
Highway
Catholic.
30?
Highway 30 and Old Portland Road.
By the Catholic Church too.
So it's way in the back.
So depending on how large their building on this parking lot is, it may or may not trigger a major modification to existing development, and that would be the teetering point on whether or not they have to come to planning commission or whether it would be staff approved. So when we have our inquiry meeting and they go back to the drawing board, we'll learn a little bit more about what level of approval that would be. The other inquiry meeting that we'll hold on June 13th is for Ness Campbell, which is a crane and rigging company in the Pacific Northwest. They have an organ station that's currently located in Hillsboro, but they also have some spots in Idaho and Washington. So they're proposing a 2-phase project. One of them would be for the outdoor storage of their cranes and rigs. And then the second phase would add a maintenance shop and an office. And that building would be a total of 18,000 square feet. So we'll have an inquiry meeting with them to discuss that. And it's located to the east of the current OMIC building.
Where is the current building then?
To the east of OMIC on Charles T. Parker Way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't hear that part.
Oh, sorry. And we don't have any active requests for pre-applications. We have a couple projects that have submitted or held their pre-application conference, but haven't yet submitted for land use. This is including the Wallace Construction Company, which would develop an office space on Northeast Prairie and 3rd Street. The Wannock Credit Union is getting really close to submitting for land use, and they've held their pre-app meeting. And that would be south of Weimar. And then third, a 3-lot partition off of JP West Road between Northwest Eastview Drive and Maria Lane. Someone's had a pre-app meeting to discuss a 3-lot partition, and they don't know exactly yet what uses would be in that partition. And then 3 applicants have submitted for land use but have not yet been deemed complete. This includes first the Columbia 3 restaurant complex, which is to the north of the Peak Performance Fitness building. They're real close to being deemed complete. We expect sometime next week. Second is a Habitat for Humanity submitted for a 10-lot subdivision. Actually, this afternoon, they just submitted their second, so we'll take a look and see if they're ready to be deemed complete. And this subdivision would be the 2 vacant lots between Myrtle Street and Oak Street. And then third, a 3-lot partition off Southwest 4th Street and JP West intersection that would support 3 different duplexes. Recently, Lori issued staff approval for the EJ Smith sewer pump station remodel, which required a sensitive lands permit because it's in the floodway and has a bit of the riparian buffer around it. And we continue to approve ministerial applications like type 1 home occupations, sign permits, and temp uses as they come. That's it for planning. Chris, what do you got?
Well, you stole my thunder a little bit there, NJ. Just following up on some projects you approved, previous meetings, the Casey House, we're still waiting on some plans for their frontage improvements on JP West and Northeast First, as well as, their on-site improvements. We haven't seen that yet. The Martin Hagen approval, again, still waiting on some construction documents there. I think they're getting pretty close, so that should start to happen here fairly soon. Did you mention Habitat for Humanity? Okay. Let's see. There's another one, a partition you approved on East Columbia. It's fronting on Rihanna and East Columbia near Miller, I believe is the nearest cross street there.
Wygant partition.
The Wygant partition. And they're submitting for building permits, and they'll have a little bit of frontage improvements and some utility work, and they'll be building single family, at least one single family home there for now. Bigger projects that we have that you've also approved, Dutch Canyon Phase 4. We just got the construction documents this week, so we'll start that plan review. They want to do early grading, so that could happen here, starting within the month, essentially. The user subdivision up on Keys Road, which is near the reservoir project. We have their second submittal for construction documents. So we'll have some fine tuning and coordination with the county on that. And then likely within a month to 6 weeks or so, they could be in construction. Hale Street subdivision, which you approved, it's 9 lots. It's in northeast part of town. That one is in design review as well. Our fourth, we just received plans for the fourth review on that. We're hoping that this time there's no issues and we can get that one approved and get them into construction soon. Is regarding the reservoir project, which we just talked about, they submitted their 100% plans recently, so we'll be reviewing those. They look very good, as you can tell from the exhibit drawings. Are highly detailed. And I think, and then the city has a couple of projects that we're reviewing plans on, Northwest Waterline projects. So EJ Smith and up to where EJ Smith turns and kind of goes north there. All of that's, from the bridge essentially up the hill and then where it elbows to the north. New water line there, as well as on several of the side streets where the lines are undersized or really old. We're trying to do kind of redo all of the water lines in there, at least the major ones. That's going to take another probably a couple of months to get all of that designed and ready to bid. So, and then it may be a phased project because it's fairly large, but that one's in process right now. We also have the Maple Street sidewalk project that's just north of the middle school. There's a couple of pieces of sidewalk on First Street there that wrap around the intersection just north of the middle school, as well as a section, I think it's about like 200 feet long west of Wygant's Aplex, and we'll be filling that gap in. So essentially we'll have sidewalk then from the highway all the way to 3rd Street on the north way. And there'll be paving too. So we hope to get that. That's out for bid now. We hope to get those bids back by, I believe, the end of the month. They go to construction right after school gets out. So that'll be avoid any issues with pedestrians up there. I think that's about it. We've got more roads still under construction. So if you've been walking out that way, it's more roads impacted significantly. I don't recommend going up there at all. A lot of truck traffic and But they're actively coring the road, putting in utilities and that sort of stuff. And some of that will go out onto Honeyman a little bit and wrap around the corner there. So it's a pretty active area right now. So I'd stay away from there, but once it's done, it'll be, I add another almost close to 3/4 of a mile of road to that project. And that'll actually conclude all of the infrastructure for that project. That's not sort of directly related to actually building a building and having trips to kind of see what further impacts there might be. Any questions on any of that?
I got a couple of things. I see the food pod is getting close to being finished.
I didn't mention that. That gets a lot of press. You probably know more than I do, but we did do a final walkthrough today for compliance with the conditions of approval, and they're basically meeting all of it. There's a few little things they had to tweak just to get things dialed in. So they met with the building official and the fire marshal, the planner, and myself, and we walked the site. So everything looks pretty good. I think the site and the main building will be fine in terms of the opening. It'll be getting the carts up and running, in place, connected, tested, and then getting them inspected by the county and the fire marshal and the building official.
Right.
So we're fingers crossed that'll go smoothly, but that's a bit of a process to get all of those agency people to review them. And there's 13 of them too, so.
And finally, I guess, how's the search going for the city manager?
I know that they've received a lot of applicants. I'm not sure if it's closed. I think it's still open, and they'll be receiving those for the next few weeks, and then there'll be a pre-screen and then another screen by council.
Right.
So yeah, that's they finished up that part, and they received 17 applications, 9 of which met the minimum qualifications. So at this point, they'll work with the consultants to do some small interviews, and then the consultants will put together a report for the city council, and then the city council will be able to determine how many and who they want to interview.
Seems like June or so is when they had hoped to.
Yeah, our current interim city manager is under contract through June. So it'd be nice to not be without a city manager.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Last thing before we adjourn, remind everybody to sign the team agreement.
Are we signing the one
No,
we have?
all on one.
There'll be a.
And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:13. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.